All right, guys, I'm so excited to have our next guest on. He is the first male client of the podcast this season, and he is here to share all of his wealth and knowledge about health, wellness, and training. He's here to talk about goal setting, core values, and how he uses his heart-centered approach to help individual clients perform their best in and out of the gym. Please welcome to the Oversharing Podcast, Taylor Seibel. Did I say it right?
Yeah.
That was good,
right.
huh?
Yeah.
How are you?
Oh, I'm doing well.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a cool setup.
Yeah. Do you like it?
Yeah.
Pretty
Definitely.
profesh?
It feels professional. Feels like I'm important.
Didn't
so
need
nice.
any drugs to get you hyped to come here?
No drugs.
Tell us about the first podcast experience that you had.
Oh, man. Yeah, the first podcast I ever did, I was so nervous. Me and my friend decided to start a podcast, and I'd never taken LSD before. And I was like, man, I need something to get me over this anxiety. So I was like, let me just
try this real quick.
Yeah, so I took like a half a tab of LSD, got on the podcast, and it like hit pretty much immediately.
How long did you guys talk for?
Like 2.5 hours.
That's awesome. On LSD.
Yeah, it was awesome though, because I realized that so much of what I was nervous about was just a resistance to letting go and like actually being in the moment.
Yeah.
And I had no choice with the LSD to just like be in the moment.
Sounds like I need to do LSD.
Yeah, like the words are just like getting channeled through me. I didn't even know what I was saying.
I still get nervous a little bit when we start. I think it's like, I tell you, it's always like a really good opportunity to sit and learn. And especially when you're talking to somebody that does what you do like for like professionally, like as trainers. I'm like, I want to learn everything, but I don't want to sound dumb. I'm like, what do I not know? Tell me everything I don't know, you know, because everyone has such different depths of what they're interested in, and then they dive deep. And I feel like you do a really good job of that.
Yeah, it's been really interesting because over time, like we were kind of talking about, you have to find ways to make things like simple and tangible for people.
Yeah.
It's really easy to just be super smart and know a bunch of stuff, but if people can't actually use it and apply it, it's really not very helpful.
Or they can't interpret it. So I feel like the one thing I tell people when they're getting into training, people have reached out and be like, what certificate do you think I should do? Like, which route should I go? And I always tell people, like, I feel like when you do a training certificate, it essentially teaches you how to not kill somebody. Like, this is how you're properly going to make sure the safety of your client, the safety of a woman that might be pregnant, and how to train a person that's over 60, all those things. But when it comes down to like the human interaction, that just comes with time. I felt like I build my business particularly around connecting with women. That's what built my business. And I had to be the person that I am to connect with that. So like when you give people like all this verbatim of word and they're like, I have no idea what you're saying. Like, let's dumb it down, you know?
Yeah. And I think that's been something that's been really cool that I've started picking up more since I've even been in Tucson. Is just seeing the way that you guys all interact with clients, and it doesn't need to be these like super complicated things. People really just need to show up and like be bought in and actually work hard at whatever they're doing.
Yes.
Because it's easy to be like, oh, the research says this, or this is the most optimal thing. But, you know, I'm probably never going to give somebody 3-minute rest periods when we have an hour to train.
Exactly. And also, you can understand the research way better than any client can. Like, you can understand the difference between a male and a female, and the research shows XYZ, but when you try to explain that to people, they're like, I don't care, just tell me what to do. And most people just want to be told what to do when it comes to like coming to the gym.
Yeah, and like you can ask people off the bat, you know, kind of how they prefer to be communicated with. Like, do they, you know, just want to have some accountability and support and not really understand what's going on, but just like have you kind of be there? Or do they really want to understand the why behind stuff? And then it kind of turns almost into more of like a mentoring type role.
Yep. And we had this conversation yesterday about like the buy-in process, and we were talking about like training the younger generation and how that's so much harder. But I think that also applies to people, even if they've never trained in their lives before, there has to be a buy-in. And I feel like with people that have never done it before, usually that buy-in doesn't happen until like a month and a half, like 6 to 8 weeks in, when they slowly start seeing like their body is like making slight changes, or their weights are getting a little bit higher, and you know, like their movements feel more comfortable. And then all of a sudden it's like a light switch, and if people get excited about training, and then it becomes a lot easier. Those first like 4 to 6 weeks, I feel like I'm still like, hey, don't forget we have a session tomorrow. And then it transitions to like, hey, like I'll see you tomorrow. And it just consistently flows after that. I don't know. I feel like there has to be a buy-in for most people.
Yeah, and it's different with online versus in-person stuff. So like with online work, I cover so many different aspects of someone's life. So I kind of almost make a rule with myself where I have to get some kind of significant change within the first 1 to 2 weeks. where they're like really bought in. They're like, oh, wow. Like whatever it is, like whatever is like the pain point for them. So if it's like, hey, they need to poop every day or, whatever, they're like, wow, that's totally
People
different.
don't talk about that. That's such an important thing. People don't talk about having to be able to poop every day.
Like there's a lot of people that don't poop every day.
Yeah, that's
like,
wild.
A lot.
Couldn't be me. I'm a 2 to 3 times a girl. A week girl. Wait, no, a day girl.
I was going to say a week. Okay, well, we might have problems.
So, okay, when you say that, are you saying, say you do like your client online? We're hopping all over the place. I didn't even let you introduce yourself, but it's okay. Good. We'll go back there.
Okay.
When you're talking about how you get people to buy in, you do an online consultation. Do you find somewhere where you can immediately see progress and you're like, that's the route that I'm going to go, and then that's your buy-in?
So the things that I'm looking at are, well, always I'll have somebody do some kind of like initial testing block, whether it's like, somewhere in the realm of like 2 to 6 weeks.
Okay.
But I'm finding out really quickly, like, where they limit at, like, bioenergetically.
Okay.
So, like, is it like a power output thing? Is it more of like
mobility?
Yeah, like there's like some type of like energetic limitation usually for people that's like stopping them from expressing life the way that they want to. A lot of times it's like people have really poor aerobic fitness.
Yeah.
So their energy levels are poor. They struggle to wake up in the morning, keep good energy through the day, because they literally just don't have a good enough ability to produce more like ATPs or like more basically like taking the food you're eating and converting it to energy. They're really bad at that. But
that also has to do with, one, what kind of food they're having, the amount of sleep they're getting, and where they're outputting that energy, correct?
To some degree, but I think a lot of that stuff becomes relatively less important the more highly trained you are. Like there's a lot bigger buffer.
Okay.
Like I would much rather have somebody be very well trained and like a little more off and lax with other aspects than like super diligent with nutrition, but they train like a wiener.
Yeah.
Like if I had to pick, like I think the training has like the biggest return on investment.
Okay, before we go any forward, you said since coming back to Tucson. So tell us a little bit about where you were before you came back. You were born and raised here in Tucson, right?
No, I'm actually from Iowa.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm from Iowa. And then there was a weird period of time where it's a long story, but I got out of a relationship and my family had like moved to Arizona a couple years ahead of me.
Okay.
And I didn't really have any reason to be in Iowa. So I moved to Tucson for maybe like 6 months.
Okay.
And I hated it at the time. Like it was like the worst place ever. How
old are you?
I was like 23.
I feel like the early 20s in this town usually typically are a little difficult for people. Especially post-breakup, because you're not going to come here and meet somebody, you know?
No. Yeah, it was just a weird time of life. I don't think it was like actually Tucson itself.
Yeah.
And then, fast forward maybe like 5 years later, I ended up moving to Prescott with the person I was dating.
Okay.
And we split up. And then I had been coming down to Tucson, every couple weeks to get adjusted at the source.
Oh, okay. With Dr. Jamal.
Dr. Jamal and Dr. Brett. And then, they kind of convinced me to, like, those two and Kevin kind of convinced me to move down here.
That's awesome.
And I was like, well, all right, I might as well just move down here. There's no reason not to. It's been going well.
You moved down here. When did you move? It was earlier this year. It wasn't too long ago.
I think 5 months ago.
Yeah, because I feel like I started seeing you like pop up in conversation a little bit through Kevin, through social media. And I started following some of your stuff. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And then all of a sudden you just showed up at the gym one day. And I remember looking at Kevin and being like, you know that guy? And he was like, oh, yeah, he might come train here. And I was like, all right, cool. And now you're training basically full time at the gym now, I think, if I'm not confused.
Yeah, well, three days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Okay. How have you liked the dynamic?
It's good. Yeah, it's good. I think it's nice because I don't feel like everyone that is trainers at the gym is stupid.
Yeah.
Which is like really hard for me to work in a gym where like I see stuff people are doing. I'm like, oh my God, that makes no sense at all.
We have a lot of really good trainers, and I tell people that we have a really good balance of like, first of all, like our client base is amazing. We have a lot of really cool people that then intertwine with each other and have created this community. Like the 6 a.m. people know all the 6 a.m. people that are working there. The 8 a.m. people know all the 8 a.m. people that are working there. But it's also really nice. I feel like people train differently at different parts of their life. Most of us have been working together for a really long time, and we've all like transitioned to more of like this lifestyle approach. And I think that's where you get the stupidity that you're talking about taken out, because no one's doing dumb shit. Like our clients want to come to move, feel good, and just live like a nice, lifelong, healthy lifestyle. So I think most of us train that way, and a lot of us train our clients that way. Even though we train differently, we all have a pretty good baseline for the most part.
Yeah, then there's like random people like Jamal where like he just gets trashed because he just likes it. Like that's how he wants to live his lifestyle.
Loves it.
So I'm like,
you can tell.
That's cool.
I told him the other day, I was like, you guys were in at 6 a.m. and usually you're there later. And I was like, what are you doing here? And he was like, I love this shit. I was like, what? He's like, I prefer it. He's like, I prefer working out this early. And I was like, yeah, you do love this shit.
He's a psycho. Yeah.
He's awesome. He's really cool. I like him.
Yeah.
So you moved down here. You're working online for a little bit before you transition to working at the gym again.
So I do both. Yeah.
Still do both.
Yeah. I kind of have like 3 days online, 3 days in person. And
Yeah.
I just work like 6 days basically.
That's nice. But do you work like a lot at home when you're working from home? Or are you able to like do all your check-ins in the morning and then check out and you're like, I always tell people that this job provides a lot of flexibility. So for me, it does. I don't know about you, but I've gotten there now over time. I'm like, no, those are my days off. I don't do anything on those days.
Yeah, I have flexibility if I want it. Sometimes like I get in periods of life where I just want to work a lot.
Yeah.
And then I'll just lean into those.
Yeah.
Because I think especially seems like the fall time is a really good time to kind of like really hustle and get after it. Like if you think about like the fall as being kind of like a time of harvesting and then the winter being more of a time of like
hibernating.
You're like consolidating. You're just kind of like hanging out
with your winter depression. We want to be inside.
Yeah.
It's cold.
But you have to kind of take advantage of those times where like you do feel extra inspired because this just doesn't hang around. It's not like, oh, like I'm going to get it back because maybe you don't.
Yeah, I like that. I feel like I know we're going to talk a little bit about like women's cycles and, the basics of training and a lot of female stuff today. But in the female cycle, there's usually like 3 or 4 days where I feel extra creative. And when I do, that's when I can sit in front of a computer for like 3 to 4 hours and just like dial in on like the holiday challenge, prepping stuff for clients. That's when I do that. And then the other 3 weeks, I'm like, I'm not creative at all. So I'm creative literally like 4 days out of the month and then I'm done.
Yeah, and it's a really good important information to know about yourself and like how you operate because then you can start to kind of like build your lifestyle around like these natural fluctuations that just happen.
I love that. So you get back into training and I wanted to have you on today to talk about just like the basics about health and wellness when it comes to women, the stuff that we see. I say we because it's probably things that we both see as trainers. I've seen you train females in the gym as well. But what do you feel like is one of the biggest setbacks in women in health and wellness? Like let's just dive into everything, whether that's hormonal, whether it's physical, whether it's stress related. What do women struggle with the most and how can we help?
Yeah, it's so interesting because I think everybody wants to jump to like the sexy stuff and talk about like hormones and blood work and their cortisol levels and like all of this stuff,
It's me. I like talking about the sexy stuff. Like, I don't feel attacked though. Keep going.
Like it's important, but it's all like very secondary in nature to like the actual stuff you're doing for that outcome to occur.
Okay.
So I think people end up focusing too much on like the end product of what's happening rather than like how it's getting there. If that
Give
makes
us an
sense.
example.
So like let's say, I don't know, you have like really high cortisol levels at night.
Yes.
It didn't just happen randomly. It's a
Why
lifestyle
did it
issue.
happen? Yes.
Like, hey, okay, what are you doing at nighttime?
Yeah. Okay. I like this. Keep going.
And people be like, oh, like I'm on my phone at night. And then like I usually train at night and I get my best ideas there. Like, okay, you literally have to reprogram yourself to not do that at night if you want that to not happen.
Yes. Or also you're up till 11 o'clock at night watching true crime. Your freaking heart rate's shooting through the roof. I can't watch that stuff at night anymore. I literally, what did we watch the other day? I think it was the Menendez brothers, but it was the actual documentary. I don't know if you've watched that yet. It's pretty fucked. It's insane. But I told Ernie, I was like, I can't watch it like so close to, I feel like my heart is beating out of my chest as I'm trying to fall asleep because I'm so wired on watching this show. So I try not to watch any of that stuff before bed.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I think the easiest ways to start to correct things and like get on the right path is, just kind of looking at like the first part of the morning and then like the last part of the evening and like what you're actually doing in those times. In the morning time, we're really trying to get, like some morning sun exposure, maybe even a little bit of heavy breathing work in and just like kind of give your body a reason to have higher cortisol levels like it's supposed to.
Yes.
And then in the evening time, kind of base it a little bit more around like mindfulness and introspection, low heart rate stuff, like long extended exhale type breathing. And
I think also people forget when it comes to like staying on the topic of cortisol, lowering like high cortisol and low cortisol is necessary to get you through the day. So waking up, increasing your cortisol is what's going to keep you awake. But you're also supposed to start lowering your cortisol around like 4 or 5 o'clock before it like really dims down before bed. Isn't that usually the science behind it?
Yeah, well, generally cortisol levels, like they peak in the morning. You kind of get this like cortisol awakening response, and then it's like is meant to kind of like naturally diminish throughout the day. It's actually like probably very prevalent in people that are either like trainers, well, because like you have like that weird trainer split where you like work in the morning and you work at night, and it doesn't really fit with the way that things operate.
Yeah.
And then, even just people that have normal like 9-to-5 jobs because they're literally living their life after work.
Yeah.
So then it's like,
so then their cortisol's high.
Yeah,
so
'cause
for
they're just doing
example,
stuff.
somebody that's doing like a 9-to-5, which is most people, are waking up in the morning. They're living their life, like you're saying, they're probably going to dinner, meeting with friends after work, and that's going to probably shoot your cortisol levels up because you're awake, alive, and well, depending on how late you're staying up. And then by the time you get home, you need like a few hours to completely wind down. So now you're almost essentially flip-flopping the days. And then you're staying up late, and then you don't have that high cortisol in the morning because you're tired from being up late the night before.
yeah. So you almost in that case, if you want to really find some balance, you almost have to kind of like create like theme days in a sense.
Yeah.
It's like, cool, you work Monday through Friday. Maybe you're just super diligent Monday through Friday after work and you just don't do a whole lot. And then like you kind of put all of that stuff towards the weekend or you just find ways to plug it into the week. Like maybe you work out in the morning, but there's a really good group of people and you get that like psychosocial enjoyment in the morning and you don't have to do it after work.
After work. You just wind down after work. I kind of want to tie this back together so it makes sense to people listening. So what you're saying is sometimes we hyper focus on like the blood work, what we think our body's doing, but we're not really dialing in on what's causing those things.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah. So like any marker you're looking at in like your blood work or a Dutch test or whatever is really just a reflection of how you've been living your lifestyle over the past like 3 to 6 months or however long.
Yeah. I also think that has a lot to do with how aware or unaware people are with their bodies. Like I can always tell when my body, like when I feel like my cortisol is like up, my anxiety, like my stress, everything feels so elevated. And I can usually tell like right in the morning and I can tell what's making those things happen. So for example, probably a month ago, I coach high school cheer and we have something called the Band app. So that app, usually all my apps are locked out till 7 in the morning because I was waking up, opening my phone, not immediately, but like even like maybe 10 minutes after I woke up, brushed my teeth, I was looking at my phone and then having to see all these notifications. This athlete's not coming, she's sick, this person's gonna be late, da-da-da-da-da. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, like my cortisol levels are shooting through the roof. I feel anxious, and that is the start of my day. Mm-hmm. And I think that would carry on into the rest of my day. Then I was like super high strung on dumb shit. So I was like, why, like for like 3 or 4 days, I was like, why are you feeling this way? And I was like, because you have forgotten that you purposely lock those apps for a reason. And you're waking up to the first thing being opening up your phone when that used to be a thing that you weren't doing even 3-4 weeks ago. Like I was completely like, literally would go turn off my alarm, do everything else, put my phone in my backpack, go to work, wouldn't check my phone until 7 a.m. And I also didn't have my watch, which I did put my watch back on. But the watch was also a thing because at work it would buzz and I would still get the notifications. I need to take this back off unless I work out. But I can always tell some people don't have that self-awareness or they choose not to have the self-awareness. And I think that's super important.
Yeah, it's super important. And like, let's say, for example, like I was training this high school kid yesterday and well, we found out really quickly that he did not eat nearly enough food because he felt not very good.
Yeah, probably nauseous, ready to puke.
I was like, okay, well, we're going to get your nutrition dialed in ASAP so you don't feel like this. But I showed him, I was like, have you ever learned how to breathe? He's like, no, I've thought about it, like how that could be important. I'm like, yeah, it could be important. Yeah. And I showed him how to do like some diaphragmatic breathing. And I think we did like 10 or 15 breaths. And he was laying there. He's like, dude, I'm so relaxed now. I was like,
he's like, I feel great.
Yeah, because I was like, before I was like, hey, do you feel like you're stressed? He's like, no, I feel like I'm never stressed. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then
sure,
you like
buddy.
show someone what it feels like to actually be in a calm state, and they're like, oh wow, then it's like a new baseline. Like they now know that that's possible, and then they can get there
to get yourself there.
Yeah, and when you spend more time in these like environments that feel very like well regulated and whatever. It makes a big difference because then you have a reference point of like the difference between
high stress and calm.
Yeah, because if you don't ever feel, the opposite end of the spectrum, like it all feels the same.
Yeah. So what would you think we could tell people if they're looking, say we say today, like find your baseline of what like natural calm feels like. What do you think would be ways to like help people get there?
Yeah, so I think meditation's really popular. I would say in general, I probably don't want to start most people with like just telling them to meditate because they don't even know what that means, or they're like, how do I just lay here with no thoughts in my mind?
Yeah.
Like, well, that's a good point. So I think
That's a great question.
I think teaching people how to actually just breathe properly and access that state like almost by default is really helpful. So one thing that would be really, really easy is just like taking a few times throughout the day where, you know, whether you're sitting in a car or you like lay down with your feet elevated or wherever you do it, you could have like one hand on your chest, one hand on your stomach, and then you're essentially like breathing into your belly and like actually feeling your stomach and your lower ribs expand. And like trying to like not pull as much air into your upper chest. Because a lot of people do this like really shallow breathing thing.
Yeah.
They're like breathing into their upper chest, but they don't actually take like real big exhales or inhales and exhales.
Yeah.
And then you end up getting all kinds of weird limitations in terms of like mobility, and because your rib cage gets really stuck and your pelvis gets really stuck if you just don't breathe properly, because those actually need to move with your breath.
Okay, that's pretty interesting. I love that. I used to do. I'm probably one of those people that's like, how do I meditate? And I would say like a Coach V tip would be a guided meditation is always a good place to start. I used to do it like in the sauna. When I first started, I would do like a 5-minute morning meditation after I worked out, or it was like a wind down meditation. But I feel like that one's, I also feel like people think meditation has to be like, you have to sit down, close your eyes, don't move. Sometimes in the morning, I'll literally play like a guided affirmation meditation while I'm making the bed. And I'm literally like, I am kind, I am beautiful. Like today will serve me the best way it can. Like literally fluffing up the pillows as I'm doing this, and it still makes me feel better. Would it be better to lay there? Absolutely. But I feel like that's a good place to start, you know, instead of feeling like I just have to sit here in silence and think about everything.
Yeah, and I think it's a lot of people get caught up on like, oh, like I'm super stressed. I need to like just not be stressed ever. And that's definitely not the case.
Yeah.
We're really looking at like what we call autonomic flexibility.
Okay.
So like being able to get really aroused and then bring yourself back down.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where like the concept of HRV comes from.
Okay.
It's like it's essentially your body's ability to like take on a big stressor and then get right back to baseline very quickly.
Baseline. I think people need to learn where their baseline is. I think that's like one of the most important things. Like, what is your baseline? And I also feel like, again, kind of tying back into hormonal work, when I was having a really hard time, I was struggling with like lots of acne, couldn't lose weight. It was like a rough 2-3 years. And when I went to go get my blood work done and we did the Dutch test, and we did a few other things, like my baseline, like there was no baseline at that point. It was like basically the way she explained it was like, you have been so high stress for so long that when someone would ask me like, are you stressed? I'd be like, no, I feel fine. Yep. And she'd be like, well, yeah, because you've been operating at that level of stress for so long. So unless shit hits the fan way up there, you're going to feel fine because you're already so used to this level of stress. She's like, you have to bring that baseline down to like average. And I was like, oh, I guess that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, and even with supplements, like people might take like ashwagandha or like phosphatidylserine or whatever to help like manage cortisol levels.
Yeah.
And that stuff can be really helpful, but I think the biggest area for opportunity is actually like pairing those supplements with behaviors at the same time.
With practices.
Yeah, so like let's say, I don't know, like
use me as an example, I don't care.
Like let's say that you had like 100 neurons in your brain just like turned on and active.
Okay.
And then you did a meditation and maybe there was 50 active. Like you just
turned
a bunch off, your brain was much less active, and then you took your ashwagandha and then another 25 turned off.
Okay.
Versus you like just took the ashwagandha or you just did the meditation, it's going to be less. There's like this 1 + 1 = 3 type effect, and that's really what we're going for, is like synergies with things.
Yeah.
So same thing with like morning sunlight or like, you know, seeing the moon at the evening time. Like actually like visually seeing the moon with your eyes is a really good stimulus to have your body like start producing proper amounts of melatonin.
Natural melatonin.
Yeah, like not actually just having to take it.
not having to take the melatonin. That's a really good way to segue into our next topic, how you said, okay, well, you can't have all these supplements or all these things without the actual behavior change. We're going to cut to a quick sponsorship. We'll come right back.
Yeah.
We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Alan Murdoch. For the past 20 years, I've been buying, fixing, and selling properties right here in Southern Arizona, and I want to buy your property. Whether it's a house, apartment, commercial building, or vacant land, regardless of the condition or the situation, I want to talk to you. When you sell to me, I pay cash and it's hassle-free. No repairs, no closing costs, and no commissions. If you have a property you don't want to deal with and you want a quick solution, call, text, or visit selltalon.com. Again, that's selltalon.com.
Discover the power of 88 Crime, where your anonymous tips are rewarded with cash. When you call in anonymously with the tip, you are given a code. With the code and a password, you can walk into a bank and redeem your reward anonymously. If your anonymous tip results in a felony arrest, you can claim up to $2,500 cash reward. Let's stop the silence on crime and strive for a safer community. For more information, please visit 88crime.org or call 88crime.
Copper Creek Cookies, Copper Creek Cookies, coppercreekcookies.net.
We can print anything on our soft vanilla logo cookies. We deliver them and other sweet treats locally. We are located at 4249 West Ina Road, Suite 121. Call us 520-300-1131. We bake smiles.
Copper Creek Cookies, Copper Creek Cookies, coppercreekcookies.net.
Your favorite radio just got bigger, bolder, and better connected. Live the Dream Media is revolutionizing how you stay tuned in. With our explosive growth in online radio and our brand new mobile app, your entertainment goes wherever you do. Stream your favorite shows, discover new hits, and connect with audiences across the digital landscape, all at your fingertips. Advertisers don't miss out. Join our expanding digital network and reach engaged listeners across platforms. Download the Live the Dream Media app today and experience radio reimagined.
All right. So let's tie that back into what you said. So a lot of the things that we see online that people do, whether it's let's get into the gym 5 times a week, but not being backed up by nutrition, or let me do all this hormone blood panel assessment, but not do the practices that have to come in order to help things like the workouts, the supplementation, all that stuff. So when it comes to that, what are ways that we can break things apart? Let's start with movement itself.
Yeah. A lot of times, definitely not always because it depends, but I guess everything depends.
Everything depends.
So I think an easy thing that people could start doing is maybe spend let's say they intend on getting back into working out.
Okay.
Right. Maybe you spend your first week or two just getting your lifestyle in line, get your nutrition dialed in, go on some walks, learn how to actually breathe properly, and then start layering in actual workouts on top of that.
Yeah.
Maybe it's 2 or 3 times a week. And then you can kind of start building stuff out. Because if you're starting from nothing, you're literally starting from nothing.
Yeah.
You don't need to go crazy off the
on.
bat. Just set a good foundation, give yourself a runway to actually make good progress for a long time. And I think it really helps if you view it as a long-term investment rather than I need to make this change for 12 weeks or whatever.
I think that's a really good, a magical 12 weeks, David. Is that what that was?
Yeah, sorry.
Was that an accident?
That's me. No, that's me. I just want to jump in here. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No,
the
I love
podcast,
that. Go for it.
The guy pushing the buttons.
He's like, ding.
Taylor, I love what you're saying right here because I have seen it, and I was guilty of it myself a couple times. But people come in.
Yeah, David, you worked out with me one time and you never came back.
Yeah, because you put me in my grave. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. No. Veronica worked me really good, and I was pretty sore. But, people try to come into it just so hot and intense on it, right? And they you see it with the New Year's guys, New Year's gals, right? Oh, I'm gonna new me. They come in just hard, right, at the workout, but they're not applying. Even myself, they just kind of open my eyes right now. Apply that lifestyle change first.
Yes.
Get that in order and then come to it, man. I just wanted to echo that for you to the listeners because
thanks, David.
I think that's probably the best piece of information I've heard. Probably
you know what? We're done with the podcast. We can go home now.
Yeah, you guys are good. So, anyways,
That's
I wanted to applaud you on that because that's a great insight, man.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for that.
No, yeah, absolutely.
Do you get it often? I feel like, and this is something that I've learned with time. I've been training for 10 years now. I've had people that have come in and been I want to start with 3 times a week. And I will say 90% of the time, those people fall off after the second month. Mm-hmm. And I've learned now as a trainer and a business owner that anytime somebody comes with me and they're 3-4 times a week, I'm no. I'm like, this is where we're starting. And then once we get there, then we can. And I had this literally happen yesterday because I just started a client about 2.5 weeks ago. And she came in and she was like, I want to do it 3 times a week. And I was like, look, I said, and I'll tell this to anybody. I said, if I throw you into the wolves, you are going to jump right out so quickly because that's not sustainable according to the life that you have been living this far. It's never sustainable that way because you get so overwhelmed, you're so sore, you feel like you have to meal prep, work out 3 times a week, walk 2 days in between, all these things. And it's so much easier to be like, this is way overwhelming than taking the stepping stone, like you said, having the building block. But I had a girl, this is her 3rd week now. She's past the soreness. We're past like the movement assessment, figuring out where we need to work. And yesterday she was like, hey, she was like, I feel better. And I'm glad that you told me to do twice a week. And she's like, next month, I'd like to try for 3 times a week. And I was like, now the answer is yes. Because if you wanted to throw in the towel, you would have thrown it in after week 1, you know? But I feel like people forget that part. They want, it's a mixture of wanting the quick fix and being like desperate for change, thinking that going balls to the wall is going to help. And it's not. It's going to make it worse.
Yeah, it's kind of like with dating, you know? Like, let's say that you like...
How's your dating life, Taylor? You're the Oversharing Podcast first eligible bachelor.
This is true. I am single.
I'll throw that out there to the girls. Thanks, David.
But it's kind of like, let's say that you hang out with someone and then you like sleep together day 1.
Okay.
Things get kind of weird, right? Because you didn't lay any kind of foundation. There's no momentum getting built. Like, you don't really know anything about each other. It doesn't really even mean anything.
Yeah.
So, like, you have to almost give things time.
So that's the kind of guy he is.
Let the meaning
let it
actually
marinate.
build.
Yeah, that's funny. I love that, though.
No, but it's the same concept applies to, like, a lot of different things in life. Friendships, training, whatever. It's like you just kind of have to start what you're currently capable of. Yeah. And then just, like, gradually increment that up.
I say this to people often. I always, especially, like, girls, I'm like, meet yourself where you're at. Just that. Like, take that one quote, meet yourself where you're at, and be realistic about where you're at. Why would you start working out 5 times a week when you've never worked out? Like, some people have never worked out in their lives, or maybe you haven't worked out, you know, since you had a baby, or maybe you haven't worked out since you got married. Like, there's all these different aspects. I'm like, you can't expect to show up 100%. So why not dial it back and be like, you know what? I rather give 100% for 2 times out of the week than half-ass and give 30% 5 days out of the week.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's funny because, like, and I'm probably jumping ahead, but from like a stress management standpoint, I really feel like what people seem to mess up a lot is they just don't have a realistic assessment of like where they're really at. Like, they almost have this like fictitious belief of like where they're at, and they're not looking at the real facts. Like, if you look in the mirror, you're like, dude, you're 30 pounds overweight. You haven't worked out in 3 years. Like, you're really doing nothing right now.
Yeah.
It's like,
let's get it together.
Let's just like do something and start making, you know, moving the needle in the right direction. But they'll be like, almost, I don't know, let's say someone was like really fit in high school or before they had kids or whatever, which happens all the time. Yep. Like, I used to squat 5 plates at high school. Like, no, you didn't, buddy, but okay.
It was probably a quarter squat, but let's not talk about it.
It's like, it's fine. I believe you. Well, you can't do that now.
Yeah.
But people will like latch on to this thing they did like so far in the past, or like where they were, and it like pretty much blocks them from really being able to make real progress now because they can't see where they're at in like real time.
Yep. I love that. That's a really good, like, it's a hard pill to swallow. I always tell people, I'm like, the hardest thing to do is look at yourself in the mirror and tell yourself how you're fucking up. You know, like that's hard. And it's not hard for me. I mean, sorry, it's not easy for me. It's not easy for anybody to do. But sometimes those are like the really uncomfortable conversations that you have to have with yourself. I also feel like where you're saying like where we're merging kind of like meet yourself where you're at and having those uncomfortable conversations of like being realistic with where you are. I think that actions without a full plan is a recipe for disaster. For example, saying, I'm going to work out 5 times a week. Like, okay, if you're going to work out 5 times a week, does that leave you space to, one, be a husband, be a wife, be a dad, work a full-time job, prep your meals, keep your house clean, manage a relationship, whatever all these things are? And for most people, the answer is no, because most people have families and kids and commitment. So I'm like, why would you set yourself up essentially to fail because you can't give 100% to all those aspects of your life at the same time.
No, you can maybe pick like let's say if we broke it into like 3 categories, it'd be like your family, your fitness, and kind of like your
work.
Yeah, like your work.
A pie.
So
it's a pie.
You can really only prioritize probably 2 of those at the same time, and then something has to take a backseat.
Yeah. I always tell people something's got to give. And I think that's just a thing with life. There's going to be times in your life where you'll be able to prioritize something better than something else or more than something else, but other things do have to take a back seat. In the terms of health and wellness, I always tell people, like if we're speaking of a pie, let's say a 4-piece pie, you have relationships, you have health and wellness, and work, right? And let's say those relationships / your social, like your social interactions, those are probably going to take a backseat if you're giving 100% to your health and wellness, because those interactions that are social also are going out with your friends, going out to restaurants, drinking. Like those are fun things in life, but right now those things are going to take a backseat, and that's okay. It's not permanent, but you can't want all these results in the gym and the social life, you know?
Yeah, and I guess there's kind of a hack to some degree. So like, for example, with my ex-girlfriend, it was really, really simple because like I didn't really have to worry too much about the mindfulness side of things because like she was always meditating or doing breath work or going on walks in nature. So I would just like tag along. I didn't have to think about it. Didn't have to really expend extra energy.
Yeah.
So like if you can find little like areas that you can make really effortless and almost just like happen on autopilot, then you have more energy reserve you can give to the stuff that like actually requires
you.
it.
I like that. Me and Ernie used to work out on Sundays. We haven't done that in a while, and I've said we need to bring it back, but we used to just go to the gym, whatever gym we were at, and we wouldn't even play music. We'd just go in there and like literally work out in silence. All you could hear is like the weights moving around, like the heavy breathing. And it was weird because we weren't even doing a lot of talking, but it was like that was almost like an hour of connection without really thinking about it. But not everybody has that.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard. I think support systems are usually a big thing too.
Yeah, that's a tough one, especially like when you want to make a lifestyle change, but everyone around you doesn't.
Yeah.
Like I did that when I was 14. So like I don't even know why I got inspired. It just kind of like happened before I ever even knew anybody that did that stuff.
Yeah. Dude, you're like 6'3", 6'4"?
6'5".
6'5". Ladies, he's eligible bachelor and he's 6'5". Did you play sports?
Yeah.
What did you play? Football?
Yeah, football, and I threw shot put and discus.
Oh, that's awesome. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, circle back. Let's go into, we talked a little bit about movement and like setting realistic goals for a movement. How can we talk about the things that typically take like a backseat? Things like the 8 hours of sleep, the sunlight in the morning. How can we integrate some of these things that are so helpful to our health and wellness, like with like taking out movement, taking out nutrition, like the simpler things in life?
Yeah, I think some of the simple ones are like habit stacking.
Okay.
So it'd be like, I don't know, let's say you just set up these little small routines for yourself. You're like, cool, I wake up, I drink this amount of water, I like put on some music I like, I take a quick walk with my dog, and you kind of just like tackle all these little things at the same time.
Yeah.
Instead of, like, I have to do this and do this and do this. It's like if you
it's
just
like
almost
everything together.
Yeah, just make like little mini routines.
Yeah.
And then, maybe you have a couple of those throughout the day and it makes things a lot easier. Or you're like, okay, cool. Like, so I used to do this when I worked like a manual labor job.
Okay.
And I didn't want to do that job, but
it just paying the bills.
It just paid the money that I needed to make to do the things I wanted to do. And I would have these little routines that are like, cool, like when I get inside my van to like go do this thing, like I'm going to stop for a minute, take 5 deep breaths, and I'm going to listen to like some calm, like frequency music while I'm driving.
Yeah.
And then when I work, I'm just like super in it and working. And then when I'm not, I like immediately shut it back off.
Cool. I like that. Like that separation is good.
Yeah. Or like, let's say like you leave the gym and you're like all wound up at night and you like
silence.
It's like, cool. Just literally get in the car, like take a couple minutes, just breathe, bring yourself down, and then like drive home quietly and, no music or like some really calming music. And then you're at least set up in a good spot when you get home to like actually unwind.
Yeah. I love that. I usually do the no music, but I think like the deep belly breaths would be really helpful because, like when we're in the gym, the music's loud, people are talking, and we're in that kind of environment 80-90% of the day. Usually when I get to the end of the day, I'm like, I just want silence. And Ernie's the same, but Ernie's like, I feel like you've gotten to know him a little bit. He has like a social battery. So I always tell him too, I'm like, remember, like, you still got to leave a little bit of that social battery for me when you get home. But sometimes he doesn't have it. Sometimes he's like, I'm done and winding down, you know? I think the other thing that people were tying into sleep that don't talk about, and this is such a big one, and I talk to the Barbell Babes about this all the time, is the amount of blue light before bed. And most of the time when people are like, I just don't sleep well, I'm like, now I'll always ask, I'm like, what time do you get off your phone? And people are like, 11. I'm like, okay. And then like, how long are you watching TV for? Like, we do a pretty good job. We still watch TV, but usually when I get home, like especially after clients, my phone's plugged in, it goes on Do Not Disturb, and I'll say a prayer for you. I'll talk to you in the morning. Like I don't talk to anybody, and people disregard that and how it really affects falling asleep at night and staying asleep at night.
Yeah. I mean, even with clients, I'm very much, I'm not like the fastest responder of all time.
Yeah, I know. You didn't answer me yesterday.
Like, I always tell people, like, I might not respond super fast, but I'm always going to respond with depth.
At something, yeah.
So, like, I'm not going to be like, just send you a thumbs up. Like, I'm going to actually send you something that's
like
actually
that.
used
Yeah.
And it's going to take more time for me to do that.
Dude, my favorite thing yesterday, I was like, hey, did you get my email? And you're like, or my text? And you're like, yeah. I was like, okay, so are you going to answer? And Jamal's like, this guy. I was like,
Jamal
yes.
doesn't even open the text. So.
It was funny, though. Wasn't expecting that. I thought you were going to be like, yeah, I'm so sorry, I forgot. You're like, yeah, I opened it. I was like, all righty then.
Yeah,
see
and Jamal,
you at the
like,
studio.
we'll have like competitions to see who has the most unopened messages.
That's insane.
He's like, how many texts do you have that aren't open right now? I'm like, 26.
That's
You're like, dude, I'm
insane.
at 50. I'm like, how do you have 50? Like, that's crazy.
He's like, I'm a doctor.
Dude, I'm here in the studio.
You're the worst.
Yeah.
You're the worst.
I'm surprised you didn't bring it up.
The worst.
I'm the worst.
There's two kinds of people in the world. There's people like me that have 0 notifications, and then there's people like David that have like 2,000 unread messages. I'm like, how do you live with yourself?
Okay, not 2,000. That's a little
Okay,
overzealous.
200, and that's still a lot.
Okay, Taylor, check us out. All right, all right, I'm gonna give you my official count here. 123
That's
unopened.
crazy.
Sorry, guys. My apologies.
That
Thought I'd
is
share it.
insane. I don't know how you do that. My anxiety would be shooting through the roof. Oh my gosh.
You
okay.
know what? I do feel bad sometimes because I don't get back to somebody like a week or two later. But
Yeah.
I have to prioritize things. You guys will get there one day, I'm sure, especially with you. If, like, you're just like doing a bunch of workouts and you're running socials and all that stuff. Yeah.
All
it's real
I'm saying
easy.
is I'm glad that when I message you, my like your notification goes down one less because you usually answer me, even if it takes like an hour.
Priorities.
Priorities.
No, I actually had somebody that I went on a date with, and I didn't text her back for 3 weeks.
You're such an asshole,
And I was
bro.
like, oh, sorry.
So sorry, I forgot.
I was like, sorry, I got busy.
Clearly, it wasn't that good of
Like,
a
do
date.
you want to
then.
still hang out again? She was like, no.
Not
I'm
at
like,
all.
okay, fair enough.
Good. Fair enough.
Like,
What's dating like in Tucson? Are you dating? We got to make sure we update
I've gone on some
your
dates.
Bachelor podcast interview. So,
I've gone on some dates. I think
Yeah?
I've gone on like 20 different dates.
and how long?
5 months.
That's not terrible.
No,
Not
but like,
terrible.
it's one
Are
of those
you
things.
intentionally dating though, or are you like?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
yeah. Like, it's one of those things where like I would rather meet up with somebody right away and see if we're going to be compatible than like be
I like that.
texting for weeks and just like be disappointed, waste a bunch of time. So that's really how it ends up kind of working out. Be like, hey, cool, we met. Let's go get coffee or let's go
Yeah.
do this thing. And it's very rarely that I go on a second date. Like almost never.
Are you picky?
Very picky.
Okay, what's your like ideal girl? So we can wean some of these girls off the list immediately.
Oh, definitely no kids.
Okay, I get. How old are you?
20. I'll be 29 tomorrow.
Okay. Oh, tomorrow's your birthday?
Yeah.
Do you have a happy birthday thing? Happy birthday. That's awesome. So 29, no kids. I don't think that's a lot to ask for, and I can see how that is like a requirement.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people with kids.
Yeah.
And then really it's a lot of like, alignment on core values and like, let's say someone likes to go out drinking on the weekend.
Yeah.
Or like, I don't
You're
want
not
that.
there anymore.
Right.
I-
But like,
I get that.
That kind of stuff takes a lot of people off the list really quickly.
Yeah. But I also feel like people that are in like that phase of drinking and partying right now, it's because they're single. So like my piece of advice would be like, don't take that to heart. Like I think people go out to meet people. I will say I never had a successful relationship that came out of a bar, but sometimes like when people are single, that's what they do. They go out and hang out, have some drinks,
Well, it is funny. I actually make people send me their whole astrology chart before I'll go on a date with
You're
them now.
fucking weird, bro. No wonder you and Ernie and Kevin get along. You guys are fucking weird. You're all gonna sit here and be like, it depends. You know what? I'm gonna say that the name of the podcast should be It Depends. Between all three of you, you guys are like nerdy.
Yeah.
Kevin's like a nerdy jock. Ernie's just like nerdy. And then you're just weird. You make people send you their astrology charts. What's your sign?
I'm a Scorpio.
Oh, man. Just kidding.
Yeah, Scorpio. I mean, I know my whole chart, but
Okay. I'm not good at that stuff. I just know I'm like Aries, Taurus on the cusp.
I knew you were an Aries. I guess
Yeah?
that just makes sense.
My birthday's on 4/20. Kevin was the first person that ever convinced me to do illegal, now recreational marijuana, which I think makes sense. Dude, that guy's like now that you're getting like to know everybody, like he is the biggest peer pressure.
Oh my God. Yeah.
He's insane. Like it's like a gift.
And
I'm
he's
like,
good at it.
you could, he could convince anybody to vote for Trump if you really wanted to. He'd call you a pussy for like 10 minutes until you told him that you were voting the right way or the wrong way, whatever. It makes sense. But he's just such a good, he'll get you.
That's always how I get Jamal to lift more weight. I'm like, hey, Kevin, what's the best you've ever done on this?
And then Kevin's like, don't be a bitch.
Yeah, and Jamal's like, damn it.
I love that. I think I heard you say that the other day. You're like, how much have you already yelled? He was like, 405.
Yeah, Jamal's
Right?
like, fuck. Okay, I gotta like double my weight.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Let's circle back to wrap this up because we streamlined away. Let's talk about just like the basics of, okay, well, first of all, how often do you work out?
Right now?
Yeah.
So the past 2 weeks, not very much because I had like this weird hip injury that kind of like popped up. And
Okay.
it popped up in the past, and I figured out that if I just leave it alone and don't actually train for like a
anything,
week or two, it
it'll
just
go
like
away.
kind of goes away.
Yeah.
So it's usually one of those things where like if it gets really irritated, like the more stuff I do, the worse it gets.
The worst it gets.
So, but in general, usually 3 or 4 days a week.
Okay. I'm at 3 days a week right now. And I think that there's a big like misconception with the amount of times that people think they should work out in a week. But I think it goes back to that thing of like, if you're only giving 30, 40% to your workout 5 times a week, why not bump down to 3 times a week? I think like scientifically proven, like 2 to 3 times a week of like a good workout is all you need, unless you're like competing for a bodybuilding show or something.
Yeah, it always depends on goals. And yeah,
Yeah.
ultimately, like you just kind of have to figure out like, what do you actually want out of the process?
Yeah.
So if you're like, oh, I want to be like Mr. Olympia, like, bro, you're going to have
You
to
be
change
there.
everything about your whole
yeah,
life.
Yep. Which a lot of people don't. I think that most people are looking for that generalized lifestyle approach. But a lot of people are shocked even when I say like I work out 3 times a week, sometimes 2. And I think usually my body is very similar, but I'm very self-aware about the way that my body feels. And usually when things just start hurting, like everything starts hurting over like, I know I have imbalances, but when I'm like so uncomfortable where I just feel like I can't piece together a workout that would feel good, that's usually a good indicator for me to take a second. And I'll take like a week off of just walking, and then I come back and I'm ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, like your body will tell you what it needs.
Yeah. We just got to listen.
Most people don't listen.
People don't listen. What else? What about the simplicity versus complex approach in all things health? How often are people trying to do too much versus consistency in the simple things?
Yeah. And again, it always comes down to goal stuff, right? So the people that I coach in person are very different than the people I coach online.
Yeah.
It's like I give them extremely specific stuff, but those are generally the people that are more like athletes that like really want to get the most out of things.
And also probably just need structure.
Yeah,
Like they know what they're doing.
Like they kind of know what they're doing. They need structure, and like they've been doing the basics for a long time, and it's just like not getting them the results they want anymore. And there's levels to it.
Yeah.
Right. So if it depends on what somebody tells me they actually want out of the process. They're like, hey, I just want to like lose 10 pounds, have better energy, be able to show up better for my family.
Which is a big one.
It's probably not going to be that complicated.
Yeah.
Maybe it doesn't even come down to tracking anything. Like this high school kid, literally, I just told him, send me photos of all of his meals, and I'm going to help
For
him.
a day.
No, like he's just ongoingly sending me photos of
Yeah.
everything he eats.
And you're like, this is what we're going to take out.
Every meal. I'm like, all right, cool. Let's add this thing, or let's take away this thing, or let's do this thing. He's like, oh, I'm going on vacation. Cool. Well, guess what? Send me your food.
Yeah. It's fine. You can make adjustments.
He wants to put like 50 pounds on. It's
Oh,
like,
man.
Bro,
We need some work.
we're going to have to eat.
He wants to put on 50 pounds and he's eating like 2 eggs
Literally.
and a toast.
Literally, like I think yesterday he said he
Buddy.
had like 1 small chicken sandwich and a piece of fruit. And I was like,
We are
Oh,
not
we got a
putting
long
on
way to
50
go,
pounds. Does he play something?
yeah, he plays volleyball.
Oh, man. Sand?
No.
Just regular? I think this is totally random, but that is one of like the coolest, I think, male sports to watch. Like male volleyball, like a full team is pretty fucking cool to watch. Those guys are crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Massive. All right. Well, we are getting ready to wrap up. Tell everybody where you're training, where they can find you, how to get a hold of you, and anything else. And your phone number for the eligible bachelorettes.
So easiest way to get a hold of me would be Instagram. So Coach_Taylor22.
Slide into the DMs.
Slide in the DMs.
Wait, say it again because I interrupted you.
Gonna slide in the DMs. It's
No, dude, the name. So you are dating. I'm just kidding.
Coach_Taylor22.
Okay.
Very, very simple, very straightforward. Post a bunch of random stuff on there about, I don't know, sometimes it's just stuff I want to talk about. Sometimes it's health stuff. I do Q&As.
Yes. And you are training at Pursuit Fitness. You're taking new clients, correct?
Yep. Taking clients in person and online until I feel like I hit a capacity where I just can't take any more clients.
Perfect. We love that for you.
Yeah.
Well, it's been great having you. It's been great having you as an addition onto the Pursuit team. Thank you for coming today.
Yeah,
I know it was a little last minute, but it was great.
Yeah.
Do you like it?
Yeah. Podcasting is always a fun time.
It's a good time. You just don't know if you're going to talk about dating or what was it? The freaking drugs.
Oh, the drugs.
The drugs.
Yeah.
Or Kevin. All of the above.
Yes, all of the above. We talk about all the things.
I love that. Well, thanks so much for coming, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. I will see you guys next week. You guys know where to find me, allthings.gpsoto on Instagram. Don't forget to download the app. David, can you just drop all that information real quick? I don't want to butcher this.
Yeah. Guys, you guys can download our app, Live the Dream Media app. It's on the Android, if you're one of those people. Come on now. And it's also available on the Apple iOS. So go and get it. You know, shows like Veronica's and more are on there live, and it's really cool. And then also we got some good ways to hook you up to listen to all of our other stuff. And if you're looking to advertise on our programs and on our app, we suggest you do so. There's an open spot on our app right now that you can rent out and have your whole display ad with a link. So don't miss out on that opportunity, guys. Let's go.
Thank you. You're the best. You guys, don't forget, we also have merch on Live the Dream Media. So make sure you guys check that out. And we'll see you guys next week. Bye.